For days before my full pension kicked in, my boss called me into his glass office. Nothing personal, Frank, just business. That's how he fired me after 29 years of loyal service. I built that place, trained everyone, never missed a day. They tossed me like trash, but what they didn't know, I kept everything, every memo, every paycheck, and I wasn't going down quiet. I'm Frank Delaney, 64, and for days, that's all I needed to cross the finish line. 4 days away from full pension, 4 days away from retiring with dignity, but instead, I got canned like a week-old tuna sandwich. Hope there's no hard feelings, Brandon Chase said, eyes glued to his laptop like I was a math error. That moment burned into my memory. The whir of the office printer, the soft hum of fluorescent lights, his face lit by the screen. Not even brave enough to look me in the I'd been at Crestwood Technologies for 29 years. 30 if you count the nights, weekends, and missed birthdays I gave them. I showed up at 5:30 a.m. every morning, trained every new hire, fixed every busted hook, server, and toilet. Never complained, never asked for more. Just worked. The conference room was cold, clinical. Brandon mumbled something about budget cuts, restructuring, and new direction. I just nodded. What else was I gonna do? Cry, beg, get escorted out by security like I'd seen happen to other guys my age? Not me. I signed the termination paperwork with the same Crestwood pen I'd used for 5 years. The logo was half faded. Just like their loyalty, I handed over my ID badge, worn, bent, the same badge I swiped every day since '95. Dropped my keys in Brandon's hand, master keys, to every room in the building. He didn't even flinch. I walked out without a word. Through the same halls I'd kept running for nearly 3 decades, past cubicles full of people I'd trained, mentored, covered for. Not one of them looked up. Cowards. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and just stared at the building. Cold concrete, empty windows. I gave them everything, and they gave me a pink slip. I wasn't even angry yet. I was numb, but that changed. When I got home, I opened the termination paperwork, ran the numbers, and something didn't add up. According to Crestwood, I'd worked 29 years and 10 months, not 11. That meant no full pension. No benefits, nothing, 4 days short. Exactly. Dug through my old files. I still had the employee handbook from 15 years ago. It was clear 30 years of service or age 65 equals full pension. I was 64, with 29 years and 11 months of service. They were lying, or trying to get away with it. Then I remembered the memo Brandon sent last month. I'd saved it. It said, all retirement calculations will be based on continuous years of service. Employees nearing eligibility should verify accuracy. You better believe I did. I pulled out every pay stub from the last 15 years. Overtime, sick leave, vacation, everything matched. 29 years and 11 months. They were either sloppy or trying to cheat me. And I wasn't going to let it slide. I thought about calling Brandon, but what would that do? He'd gaslight me. Or worse, get legal involved. No, I needed someone smarter. That's when I remembered Janice O'Connell, 12 years in HR before she retired. Tough, sharp, knew the employee handbook like scripture. I heard she was consulting now. I found her number in my old Rolodex. My finger hovered over it. Calling her would mean this was war, but war was what they started when they tried to rob me. I dialed. She picked up on the second ring. Frank Delaney, she said. I heard what happened. Let's talk. Asterisk. Janice didn't sugarcoat a thing. What Brandon did, it's not just unethical, it's illegal, she said, voice like cold steel. Federal law protects employees from being terminated just to avoid paying benefits. But proving it, that's another story. I leaned in. I kept everything. You kept all your pay stubs, every single one, and the handbook, and that memo from Brandon. She was quiet for a beat. Then you might have a case. No, not just a case, a reckoning. She explained how it worked. The Department of Labor would investigate, but only if we had proof of intent. Mistakes happen. What mattered was showing that they knew what they were doing, and did it anyway. I'll file the complaint, she said, but you need to stay quiet. Don't talk to anyone at Crestwood. Don't post about it. Don't even whisper to your neighbor. I nodded. This wasn't just about me anymore. If they did this to me, how many others had they burned? Monday morning, I showed up at her office with 3 boxes of documentation. Every memo, every raise, every training record, even emails I printed out over the years just in case. She sorted through them like a surgeon. Sharp, efficient, no wasted motion. When she got to Brandon's memo, she read it twice. Then said something I'll never forget. He signed his own indictment. Turns out, when you fire a guy for days before he hits a full pension milestone, you better make damn sure your math checks out. Brandon didn't. And we had the receipts. Tuesday morning. Janice filed the complaint with the Department of Labor. By Wednesday afternoon, I got a call. Brandon. I didn't answer. Then he called again. This time, I picked up. Double quotes Frank. He started voice tight. I've heard rumors. Are you planning to make this into some kind of legal issue? Silence. He continued, look, we followed company policy. You had 29 years and 10 months. That's what HR shows. That's not what my records show. He paused. I hope you're not planning to stir things up. You know how these things can go. Suddenly, people start digging. Performance reviews, workplace conduct, security logs. You get me? So now it was threats. I let that hang in there. Then I said, calm as a still lake, I'm not looking for trouble, Brandon. Good, he said too quickly. Just move on. But it was too late for that, because Janice had already filed the complaint, and the Department of Labor was already investigating. Thursday morning, Janice called with news. They've moved fast, she said. Turns out, you're not the first. 3 other employees. Same situation, fired within weeks sometimes. Days before their pensions would have vested. And all of them over 60. A pattern, but it gets better. The investigator assigned to my case. He'd requested internal emails from Crestwood, and what he found was worse than we imagined. Emails between Brandon and the new HR director. Subject line, workforce optimization. They weren't even subtle. They used my name 6 times, called me a legacy cost, said my health benefits and pension were ongoing liabilities, outlined plans to eliminate redundant roles before vesting dates. They called it proactive workforce management. They called me a line item. They screwed up, Frank, Janice said. They used company email. They talked about people by name. You're not just suing now, you're testifying. By Friday, I was sitting in a quiet, windowless room at the Department of Labor's downtown office. 2 agents, tape recorder, stack of documents. They went year by year through my employment history. Showed me printed emails I'd never seen before, spreadsheets, names, target dates, and at the top of one PowerPoint slide, Q for optimization targets my name, along with the 3 other older employees. Next to the words, termination savings estimate, $685,000. I swallowed hard. That wasn't just cold. That was calculated fraud. One of the agents leaned in. We believe Crestwood deliberately terminated employees to avoid pension obligations. That's wire fraud. If they used email, it crosses federal lines. I blinked. What does that mean? It means the people responsible could go to prison. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not out of fear. Out of rage. All those years, all that loyalty, tossed out like old furniture. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Asterisk. By Monday morning, things exploded. Janice called me, her voice sharper than usual. They've issued subpoenas. Full access to Crestwood's email servers. The investigators are going in. I sat in my kitchen, coffee untouched, hands gripping the table. I'd waited 29 years for my pension. Brandon, he was about to wait a lot longer for sentencing. By Wednesday, federal agents executed a search warrant on Crestwood's headquarters. They went through Brandon's office, the HR department, even the server room I helped design. 6 employees were interviewed to confirm they'd seen lists, names, dates, savings projections. Janice kept feeding me updates. Frank, she said over the phone, they found a presentation given to the board. What kind of presentation? It was called Legacy Employee Transition Strategy. I froze. You were on it, listed under Q for removal targets, right next to the projected savings if they terminated you before full benefits kicked in. There was a spreadsheet, a literal spreadsheet, with columns like employee years of service, projected pension liability, target termination date. I'd read more like a hit list than a business report. And here's the kicker. They saved the files on the shared company drive. As if no one would ever look. Janice laughed. It's like they wanted to get caught, but I didn't feel like laughing. I felt something colder, sharper, vindicated. The game had changed. Brandon wasn't just a heartless executive now. He was a criminal, and the feds were breathing down his neck. That Friday, my phone rang again. Brandon. I answered. His voice cracked. Frank, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Oh, about your termination. Maybe we acted hastily. Maybe there were calculation errors. Maybe, I said. You sure about that? If you're willing to come in Monday, we can sort this out. Quietly. I let him talk and talk. Then I dropped the bomb. It's already too late. Silence. I'm sorry, he said. The Department of Labor filed charges. This isn't a misunderstanding, Brandon. This is a federal investigation. That's when his voice changed, high-pitched, almost pleading. Look, Frank, we've known each other a long time. Let's not turn this into a spectacle. We can resolve this professionally. No lawyers. No press. No courtrooms. I pictured him sweating in that overpriced suit, watching his career crumble in real time. No, I said, we'll do it the right way this time. Click. Saturday morning, I got a call from Crestwood's corporate attorney. Not Brandon. Not her. This guy had a voice like smooth concrete. Mr. Delaney, he began. My client would like to offer a settlement. I didn't speak. I let him pitch. Full pension reinstated, health benefits restored, and $50,000 as compensation. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. 50 grand. That's what they thought my silence was worth. I'll think about it, I said, then called Janice. Don't take it, she said instantly. That offer is bait. They're trying to avoid a class action. She was right, because by Tuesday, everything detonated. 8 more current and former employees came forward. All over 60, all fired just before benefits vested. By Thursday, it was 15. The news picked it up. Federal investigation targets local tech company over pension fraud. Brandon's face was on the 6 p.m. news walking out of Crestwood. With a forced smile, reporters shouting questions. He didn't answer, because he couldn't. Behind the scenes, the Department of Labor was preparing charges, real ones, criminal. Fraud. Wire fraud, conspiracy to deny earned benefits. And me, I didn't need to lift a finger. The system was doing what it was built to do. Finally, Friday morning, I was sanding a bookshelf in my garage when my daughter called. Dad, you're on the news. I wiped my hands and turned on the TV. There it was, a live feed of federal agents escorting Brandon Chase out of Crestwood in handcuffs. Cameras followed as they loaded boxes of documents into unmarked vans. The anchor spoke. In a grave tone, federal prosecutors alleged that Crestwood executives, including CEO Brandon Chase and HR Director Patricia Walsh, engaged in a coordinated effort to terminate long-term employees just before their pension benefits vested. My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. I was the match, the spark, the guy they tried to erase. Who brought it all down? Asterisk. By the following week, Crestwood was bleeding from every angle. Stock price, down 18%. Clients, pulling contracts, vendors, freezing shipments, the board in full panic mode. Brandon had disappeared from the company website overnight. No announcement, just poof, gone. But the feds, they weren't done. Janice called me Tuesday morning. Frank, are you sitting down? Should I be? They've charged him 14 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, employee benefit denial. I said. Each count carried up to 5 years in federal prison. That's 70 years, if the judge stacked them. But here's the kicker. Patricia Walsh, Crestwood's HR director, flipped. She turned state's witness, was already cooperating, and she had everything. Meeting notes, email drafts, recordings of private strategy calls with Brandon. Frank, Janice said. They called it Operation Trimline. I almost laughed. He gave it a name, like some marketing campaign. Only this one was aimed at destroying the futures of people who built that company. The news ran another story that night. Local anchor in a blue blazer, face grave, voice low. Sources inside the investigation report that Crestwood Technologies may have targeted up to 20 senior employees over the past 3 years in what federal prosecutors are calling a systematic benefit denial scheme. My phone buzzed non-stop. Old coworkers, neighbors, even my daughter's former teacher. You're the guy who started all this, right? One text said. I can't believe they did that to you, said another. But I wasn't basking in attention. I was processing something else. For years, I thought staying loyal meant something. That hard work would be rewarded. That if you kept your head down, didn't complain, stayed late when they needed you, you'd be okay. But the game had changed. And I almost didn't see it. Almost. Friday morning, Crestwood's legal counsel called again. Mr. Delaney, our client would like to revise the previous settlement offer. I said nothing. Full pension reinstated, backdated to your original eligibility, lifetime healthcare coverage, and $200,000 in compensation. Now we were talking. But I still didn't respond. Additionally, all legal fees covered, and a formal written apology from the company president. I leaned forward in my chair. Put it in writing, I said, and send it to my attorney. Janice called 2 hours later, practically buzzing. They know they're done, Frank. They're trying to stop the bleeding, but it was far too late. Because now, the class action was forming. By Monday, 24 former employees had joined. A few were already in court-mandated arbitration, but most were ready to go the distance. Janice was helping build the case file, and the Department of Labor was cooperating fully. She told me, Frank, this could be the largest employment benefit fraud case this state has ever seen. And I just sat there, stunned. Because a month ago, I was sitting in my truck, fired. 4 days before retirement. Now, I was the lead domino in an avalanche they couldn't stop. Midweek, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Harold Boone. Used to be the janitor at Crestwood. Retired 5 years ago. Frank. I saw your name in the paper. I always knew you were a good man. Proud of what you're doing. His voice cracked. They pushed me out early too, but I didn't keep my papers. I just walked away. I swallowed the lump in my throat. He didn't have the records. Didn't have a Janice. Just years of quiet work, wiped away. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every worker who believed the promises, who gave their best years to a company and got blindsided in the end. By Thursday, the story hit national news. Crestwood Technologies executives face federal fraud charges in employee pension scandal. The footage of Brandon being escorted by marshals went viral. Someone slowed it down. Added dramatic music. People shared it like it was justice porn. The comments were brutal. I deserved it. This is why I don't trust corporations. Loyalty means nothing anymore. Respect to Frank Delaney. Real one. I didn't reply, didn't like or share, but I saw every single one. Friday afternoon, Janice called again. They're offering something new. What now? I asked. She took a breath. An NDA. Of course. They want your silence in exchange for the settlement. You'd get everything: pension, healthcare. Too okay, but you agree not to speak publicly. No interviews, no testimony. I didn't hesitate. No deal. Good, she said, because we're just getting started. By the end of the month, everything changed. Crestwood was no longer just a local tech company under fire. They were national headlines. News vans parked outside their headquarters. Reporters camped on sidewalks. Former employees lining up to tell their stories. Everywhere I turned, there were whispers. In the grocery store, someone stopped me. You're that guy, right? The pension guy. At the gas station, heard you took on the big dogs. Good on you. I hadn't asked for fame, but I was wearing it now, whether I wanted it or not. Janice warned me. They're going to come after you again, Frank. Not with threats this time. With spin. She was right. That Friday, Crestwood's PR firm launched a campaign. Smiling executives. Quotes about rebuilding trust. Generic apologies posted to their website. We deeply regret the actions of a few individuals that do not reflect the values of Crestwood Technologies. Few individuals. Brandon and Patricia were the executive team. There wasn't anyone else to blame. And yet, they tried. On Monday, my daughter called me, furious. Dad, did you see what they posted about you? I hadn't. She read it aloud. A former facilities employee, recently terminated, appears to have misunderstood the terms of his separation and retirement eligibility. While we acknowledge his long tenure, his claims do not reflect our records or internal documentation. I felt my stomach twist. They were gaslighting me, publicly. Janice wasn't surprised. This is what cowards do when they're cornered, but it still stung. I'd spent almost 3 decades fixing broken things for them. Now they were trying to break me. 2 days later, I got a formal request to appear at a federal deposition. The trial was moving forward. Brandon and Patricia were both indicted. Crestwood's legal team was scrambling. The Department of Labor needed me to testify under oath. I agreed, but the night before the deposition, I got a visitor. A man in a dark gray suit knocked on my door just after 7 p.m. Mr. Delaney, he said, I'm here on behalf of Crestwood's board of directors. We'd like to propose an alternative resolution. I crossed my arms. You've got 5 minutes. He cleared his throat, then handed me a leather-bound folder. Inside his settlement agreement, $500,000, full pension, lifetime health care, and a clause that jumped off the page: on disparagement and silence agreement. No interviews. No testimony. No public records. $500,000, he said quietly. It's more than generous, and it spares everyone embarrassment. I stared at him. You people fired me 4 days before I earned my pension. He nodded slightly. And we regret that, deeply. But now you have a choice: keep fighting and stretch this out for years, or walk away today with peace and prosperity. I didn't raise my voice, didn't scream. I just handed him back the folder. Tell your board, I said. They don't get to buy silence anymore. He left without another word. The next morning, I testified to federal attorneys, a court reporter, and a microphone that made my voice echo in the room. I told them everything. From day one to the final day, the pen, the badge, the memo, spreadsheet, Brandon's fake date of hire, Patricia's cold glances in HR meetings, the threats, the phone calls, the offer on my doorstep. I didn't cry, but my voice cracked when I talked about the people they pushed out: Harold Boone, Maria from payroll, Todd, who passed away 2 months after they fired him, never got his check. When I walked out of that building, I felt 20 years younger. That same week, the class action lawsuit officially launched. 30-7 plaintiffs. More joining every day. Crestwood's insurers tried to intervene, but the damage was done. One by one, the board members started resigning. First the CFO, then the compliance officer. Then 3 VPs in a single day. By Thursday, the CEO seat was empty. Brandon had already entered a plea deal, guilty on 4 counts. He'd agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. Patricia followed. 6 months in prison, 2 years probation. She cried in court, said she didn't know what she was doing. I didn't believe her. What she did wasn't a mistake. It was math. Cold, deliberate math. They ran the numbers, decided who was worth less than their pension, and hit delete. But people aren't numbers, and they deleted the wrong guy. Asterisk. 3 months after the storm began, I stood in the courtroom as final judgment fell. The federal judge didn't mince words. What happened at Crestwood Technologies was not a clerical error. It was a corporate ambush executed with spreadsheets. Instead of bullets, Brandon Chase sat at the defense table. He didn't look so polished now. No tailored suit, no smug smile, just a pale face and trembling hands. The judge turned to him for knowingly orchestrating the denial of earned benefits through fraud and manipulation. I sentence you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by supervised release and a lifetime ban from managing employee benefits in any capacity. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Then came Patricia's turn. She clutched tissues, weeping as the judge delivered 6 months in prison and 2 years probation. But the real blow. Crestwood Technologies was finished. The class action settlement reached $4.3 million in restitution, with additional penalties pending. Every affected employee received back pay, benefits, and damages. And me, they wired $200,000 into my account the following Monday. My pension kicked in retroactive to the day they fired me, health insurance restored, legal fees covered. But that wasn't the moment it all hit me. That came later. It was early spring when the phone rang again. "Mr. Delaney," the voice said. "We're calling from Dutton Industries. We recently acquired the remnants of Crestwood Technologies." I said nothing. "We've reviewed your history and your testimony. We'd like to offer you a consulting role." I laughed out loud. "Want me, Pack, not in maintenance," the voice said. "As our new head of compliance and ethical oversight. Full salary, full control. You'll be reviewing every retirement policy before we move forward as a brand." For the first time in years, I felt fire in my chest again. "I'll think about it," I said, but deep down, I already knew the answer. That weekend, I stood in my garage finishing a new project. A solid oak bench for my daughter's front porch, hand-carved, made to last. She stopped by with my grandson, Jacob. "Grandpa," he said, running up to me. "You were on YouTube again?" "Oh yeah," I said, wiping sawdust from my hands. "They said you're the guy who caught the bad boss." I chuckled. "I guess I am." He looked up at me. "Why, died? Are you famous now?" I crouched down beside him. "No, kiddo. I'm just the guy who kept his papers." Weeks passed. The case faded from headlines. Crestwood's name was retired. Brandon vanished from public view. Patricia went silent. But the legacy, it stuck. Janice and I launched a nonprofit together, Pension Watch. Free legal guidance for older employees facing shady terminations. We help people fight back and win. One day, a man in his 70s called. "They just let me go." Said I was too slow to keep up, but I gave them 31 years. I asked one question. "Did you keep your pay stubs?" He had. We took the case. 6 weeks later, they settled for $120,000. One voice became 10. 10 became 100. We weren't just building a paper trail. We were building a movement. Then came the letter. No envelope. Just slid under my workshop door. Type. Anonymous. I was part of it. I sat in the meetings. Read the names. I didn't speak up. "I'm sorry. You were on the list. But you were the only one who fought back. You made us all remember that. Silence is a choice. And so is courage." Former Crestwood analyst. He stood there, frozen. Because for years, I believed I was invisible, replaceable, a nameless cog in a machine. But I wasn't. None of us were. We just needed one person to stand up. Now, I wake up when I want, drink hot coffee in the backyard, answer calls from people who once thought they had no voice. The irony, I never wanted revenge. I just wanted to retire in peace. But sometimes, justice doesn't knock. You have to build the door. And when they try to slam it in your face, you kick it off the hinges. Asterisk. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought? Or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next adventure. Asterisk.